Hey YouTubers, today we're going to go over par. Take a look at some readings from my one of my tanks, and we'll talk a little bit about why you need to know your par levels, or do you need to know your par levels, and what it will do for your plants. So let's get into it. Okay, so here we are looking at the freshly rescaped 40 breeder. Still kind of a work in progress, but this is the basic skeleton of it. I'm sure I'm going to be doing a lot of tweaking and changing around in the next week or so. But this is kind of what I came up with as an initial layout. As you can see, the rock pile from over here to over here, and it's more or less centralized it. The driftwood's been moved over a little bit, cut this path in here, and look at that. The three tetras are all lined up right there. Need to get some more of those guys. I like them. I like to see them in a schooling action. Anyways, back to it. I moved the Sunset High Grow over into this corner. The Crypt bronze is still over here on the side. Got some Lixa japonica and some S. rippens. That's the aquatica. We got the Anubias kind of centralized here. When I pulled this whole stick out, I got 6 pieces of Anubias out of that batch, and just put 2 more in, and there's a little one right in there, which is a different kind of Anubias, and I'm not sure exactly what kind, or I'm not even sure if it is Anubias. It's a long, kind of an elongated leaf. It's what's left of it. It used to be a thriving thing, but it got buried by the larger Nana, and I'm not sure, but it is a rhizome that it comes off of, so we'll have to see when that grows out a little bit more. Maybe somebody can identify that. And a little more of the grass out there. So what we're going to do is do some par measurements on this tank. Now, what I'm going to be doing here is this is the club par meter, South Carolina Aquatics Association par meter. I got a big meeting with them this evening, so I have to return this thing. So I figured this would be a good time to go ahead and take some measurements of the 40 breeder. I've already done the 55. It parred out at about right around 100, maybe a little bit more, a little less in certain areas or whatever, but it was right around 100. So we're going to see what the 40 breeder looks like, and for that I'm going to cut to a different camera, and yeah, let's see what we get. Okay, so we should be rolling here, and let's see, turn the power on this thing. I'm going to be dropping the meter in now. This tank has the LED floodlights, Chinese LED floodlights. I'm going to see if I can zoom up here. See if you can see them. Okay, can't really tell, but This guy over here is a 30 watt, and this guy right here is a 20 watt in the middle, and then there's another 30 over on the other side. Just so we can identify those, and we'll bring you back down in here where we're going to do our readings. And let's put our photo sensor down in there. Excuse me, guys. Okay, so this is like almost directly under the 20 to 20 watt flood, and she's reading about 65 right there. So now we're going to move it over here. Hold on, let me loosen this up a little here. Without breaking the par meter. And we're going to take a reading over in here, and this would be underneath the 30 watt meter. I gotta get it where it's not covered up by leaves. And we are seeing about, wow. Okay, down here where it's kind of somewhat subdued by the leaves is about 54, and if I get it out of the leaves where it's getting direct, yeah, see, we're about 65 there. So we got a pretty even flow here. Got 65 down at the substrate here. And if I come over here, okay, right there, saying about 79, 80. So it appears yeah. Okay. So move back over here. Let me pan up a little bit. Okay, so here's the difference in, guys. This is how much your water really can make a difference in how much light gets down there. Okay, right there, which is about 5 inches from the surface, I'm at 105 right there. Now if I drop this down to about, oh, that's probably about 10 inches below, we're down at about 70 right there. So it's dropped 30 par just in this distance from here to here, in about 5 inches. So people have asked, and you know, how much of a difference does it make when you put glass or acrylic across the top between the lights and your substrate? And my best recommendation on that is that for the if you need to put a top on it, if you've got fish that are jumpers, the first thing I would suggest would be to go with a screen type top, which if you go to Bulk Reef Supply and look up their nylon screening, all you have to do is go to your Home Depot or Lowe's or local hardware store, and you can pick up the framework for it, which is really easy to work with. You just need a hacksaw or a good sharp, you know, metal cutting blade or whatever to cut the stuff to size. But it comes with everything you need, and you buy the screening. I'm sure other places you could probably find it on the internet. I just know for a fact that Bulk Reef Supply has it. It's a clear netting or screening, and you can get it in 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch squares. And that is the least impetitive, or whatever the word is, it has the least effect on the lighting going through it. Next on the list would be if you could get a piece of acrylic cut. Acrylic is optically a lot clearer and has less less ability to stop the light than glass does. So that would be the next best on the list. And then to finish it out would be glass. And the best glass is a very low lead glass, like they make the Amano tanks, the ADA tanks. They're very low lead glass. And then finally, what you get down to is just regular glass, which is going to be the most, it's going to cut down the light the most, and that has a higher lead content in it. And the way you can really tell the difference is if you look at the seam of a tank, which the seam on end, you see the kind of greenish blue color to it. That's the lead, or the iron. I'm sorry if I was saying lead. The iron content, rather. That's what you're seeing in there. So it's a low iron content in the ADA glass, which is a much clearer glass. And then, of course, you got acrylic next, which would be even better. And then to top it out would be the screen top, which actually I do have some of the screen tops. Let me see, let me reposition this guy here. And let me grab one here. Give me a sec. This is one of the screen tops. As you can see there, that's the quarter inch by quarter inch. And that is small enough to keep most of your, even your smaller fish that might be jumpers, from making their swan song. And this is the framing you pick up at Lowe's or Home Depot, and it comes with these you can get right angle corners, but you basically cut the screen to size, and there's a groove right here, and that's where you stretch the screen out and you roll in this little round rubber, which expands inside this groove and holds the screen in place. And that's really all there is to it. The corners, I use a little hot glue on them, or you can use some rubber cement or silicone or whatever your flavor is, or whatever, what you got on hand, just to make sure that they don't slide apart. And that's about it. So, in conclusion, what we got is that the depth of the tank from substrate to surface is something you want to consider as in par. The shorter the tank, the more par you're going to get down to the substrate or to the plants. And this is primarily if you want to do carpeting type plants like the S. ripens or baby tears or dwarf baby tears or hair grass, which is you definitely want to have a real strong light or a very shallow tank to do the hair grass. That's very important. Obviously the clarity of the water. If you got a brackish, or not brackish water, but a tea-stained, if you got a lot of driftwood in there and it's got the tannins floating around and stuff, that's going to cut down on your light, so that'll make a difference. So the clarity of the water is important. And of course, your lighting itself, you got to make sure you got the proper lighting and the proper spectrum. Spectrum's easy enough. You can get real fancy with it with the LED lights now, where you can kind of customize your spectrum values. I'm kind of old school and on a budget, so I'm going with just the 65K floodlights, LED floodlights, which do the job for me. If I wanted to get fancier and do some fancier plants with more reds and oranges and colors and stuff like that, I probably would have to up my game, and probably would end up changing over to one of the LED strips. But for what I'm growing in here, this is more than enough, and I can always, let's see if I can get you up here. Raise this guy up so you can see the lighting. Now these are flown by these chains up here, which I can always adjust the height this way. I'm going to be changing up. That's going to be another video though, so I'm not going to go into that. But at any rate, you know, whichever system you use to hang it with, you want to have it where you can adjust the height. And I played with it. The lights are actually higher up right now than they normally are. I forgot that I raised them up when I was doing the rescape yesterday. So that's probably one of the reasons for the lower par readings. But I can lower these guys down to where they're right above the water. And obviously that way I'm getting a lot more par down to the bottom of the tank. So that comes in handy, and that's always nice when you got a flown system. And as far as the what it's hung from is that's just electrical conduit with the corners and stuff like that, and I got it strapped with the two, where's my finger, there it is, the two bars that come up here and up there. They're just strapped to the back of the stand. So that's how I did that. Now, par, why is it important? Why are we even talking about this? What difference does it make in my tank? Well, par is photosynthetic, oh geez, now I can't think of the name of it. I'll put it on the screen. It has to do with the amount of usable light spectrum that the plants can absorb. So the more usable light they can absorb, the more they're going to grow. So, you know, the higher the par reading is, the better the growth rate on your plants is. Now there is also PER, and that has to, there's just kind of an ongoing argument on over whether par is really the stand all be all of what we should be looking at, and PER is probably more pertinent to the actual growth of the plants. But there's all kinds of videos out there on YouTube as far as explaining that, and I'm not really a scientist. I'm kind of learning this on the run myself. I just know that the higher the reading, the better. And for those of us who didn't go to college for you know, lighting, spectral technologies and all that kind of stuff, you know, keep it simple. So the higher the number, the better. And the ways to achieve that are definitely, if you're on a budget, get yourself some of the cheaper LED floodlights. You can find them on eBay. They're relatively cheap. I think the 30 watters are around $14 to $16, somewhere in there. 20 watts are, I think I've seen them down to around $10. You can even go up to 50, and I think I got 50, 75, and 100. You know, depends on what you want to do with it and how deep your tank is. But you can go with that kind of lighting. If you've got to put some sort of top on it, you can use glass, but I would recommend going with the screening. As far as that goes, you still have the evaporation with the screening. I get that. I get that. If you're one that needs to, you know, you got a real job, and you need to have you know, the time to do the job and everything like that, you don't have that much time to put into the tank, well, then maybe you want to go with acrylic or glass to keep the evaporation levels down, where you don't have to keep topping the tank up. If you got the extra time, then I would just go with the screening, because that's the least impediment to the lighting. Yeah, I think that's about all I got for you today. I hope this was helpful. If you like what you saw, hit the like button. If you don't like what you saw or thought it was crummy, hit the you know, the unlike or whatever it is. Yeah, that's all I got. So we'll see you soon.